Tractate Sanhedrin, page 4. Today we're going to cover many subjects. Some of them are the idea of em la mikra or em la masoret. This is not just here, it covers the whole subject in the rabbinic thinking or rabbinic understanding of Torah and Torah law and the oral teaching. So the question is, what is the essence, what is the fundamental understanding? Yesh em la mikra or yesh em la masoret? What does that mean? Take for example a word like yarshi'un. Yarshi'un, yud reish, shin ain, nun sofit. The way that we pronounce it is yarshi'un, it's plural. The way that it's written is yarshi'an, it's singular. If you tell me yesh em la mikra, which means you go by the text, so you said yarshi'un, plural. Plural meaning when it's come to the rabbinic court and they have the decision and discussions. So yarshi'un meaning you have to have a more than one judge to express the verdict, to rules. If you said without the letter vav, that's the masoret, the way that it's written in the text itself. And since it's written without vav, yarshi'an can have derivative that you need to have solely one judge. And soon you see so many differences. While we have those discussions, we're going to derive also several indirect subjects, such as the Khatam Sofer. He brought a question when it's come to writing Sefer Torah. Do we need to make a bracha? Obviously not. Why is that? It's because if you are a scribe and you start writing it, you never know if you're merited to complete it. But then when you completed it, there are so many, soon you see examples of questioning over certain letters or certain derivative from letter. So therefore you cannot say the bracha. It's basically the whole question of bracha. It's upon completion of completed Sefer Torah. So he holds the Khatam Sofer. That's the reason why you do not make a bracha for writing Sefer Torah, and obviously we're going to discuss it later. Another several derivatives. We're going to speak about question that posted should never happen, but the late Rav Wozner, I have the privilege at the mid-80s to get a beautiful askama, beautiful approbation to one of my books. Anyway, he was asked about miscarriage situation when the pieces of the body came out, and how do you count the time of nida? Do you go by the moment it happens, or you go by the moment that the procedure, which was several days later, took place? Another question posted is a shevet hati. Again, should never happen to anyone, but is derivative from our discussion today. Namely, someone dug himself in a mikveh and passed away. There's a blood coming out. Does people allowed to use that mikveh? How do you evaluate the amount of blood versus the water? In more kind of general hypothetical scenario we're going to discuss. Also the question of using a mixture of chalev, chalav, lo tvashel gdi b'chalev imo. The Torah said you should not mix a milk and dairy, and the derivative from that, meaning in those days they used to have a chalev, they used to have mainly wax candles. Can you use them since it's a mixture? Again, question posted both Khatam Sofer, Chaye Adam. So with that in mind, since we said that we are loaded with a lot of discussion today, let's start a little earlier, the place we left yesterday, which is page 3b, 11 lines from the bottom of the page. Tanu Rabbanan. Sages teaches us Dinei Mamonot. This is a continuation of what we discussed yesterday. When it's come to a monetary law, a monetary disputation, you need to have 3 rabbinic judges to rule. Rabbi Omer, Bachamisha, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi hold, you need to have 5 judges, Kedei shigamer adin bishlosha, in order to have a final verdict using 3 judges. So, what exactly you need to have is the key to have an odd number, which is 3 versus 2, or the key is, in order to have all this process of discussion, and the more the merrier. Atu bitlata milo gamar dina betrei. Think of it. You have 3 rabbinic judges. And what's going to happen? You have, for example, 2 and 1. So you go by the what? By the majority. So why do you need to have 5? Hachika amar, that's what the meaning of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi to say. The reason we requested 5 rabbinic judges, mipnei shegmar din bishlosha, in order to have the minimum requirement, which is 3 rabbinic judges in the session. So that's basically follow what we studied yesterday of Rabbi Yoshaya. He teaches us that because the Torah used the term Elohim, and remember that's not God, that's the application of judges, we explained yesterday. So Rabbi Yonatan said that it's enough 3, and Rabbi Yoshaya said that that's the derivative from the text. Alma kasavar tlata kiktivei bigmar dinaktivei. When the Torah used this term in the text, it means the final verdict, and therefore, at the end of the day, by the end of the session, by the time that they rule the verdict, it has to be 3, which means you have 5, and you divided them, and you have the minimum, according to his view, of 3 rabbinic judges that goes in one way. The Gemara have a problem with that. Megadef ba Rabbi Abau. Rabbi Abau was extremely unhappy. Either you said, according to Aruch, is make it like a ridiculous, or even by others, some said of Shvira Gaon or others, that said that he almost have a word of curse to say, but very strong opposition to that. Ela me'ata. When you tell me now that the amount of judges you need in order to rule when it's come to monetary law, monetary disputation, and that specifically applies to what? To the time of the verdict, which is the final stage, either to exempt or to impose punishment upon the claimant, upon the defender. So it has to have the 3 judges. Tehes Sanhedrin gdola tzrecha 140 chaser echad. What we said? We said yesterday that we have 3 different forms of court. And we said the highest Supreme Court, we have 70. As we explained, can be with the head, 71, but the key is 70. God talked to Moses, 70 elders, 70. So if that's your scenario, to have the majority, and you go the same way as a 5 in order to rule by 3, then in order to rule by 70, you need to have 140 judges. So eventually you have 140, and you rule by 71 judges, and that's the way you have the final verdict. ותהי סנהדרין קטנה צריכה 45, כדי שיגמר הדין ב23. Remember we said yesterday we have gradation, we have 3 different levels. We have mandatory disputation when it's come to robbery, personal injury, etc. You need to have 3 rabbinic judges. Then when it's a capital punishment, we go to Sanhedrin Tana, which is 23. And then the highest supreme rabbinic court, it's 70 plus 1, it's 71 uneven. So the same way you should think about the one that had 23, meaning you requested 45, you split it to half, which is in a way plus 1, so then you have 23, and that's the majority. So why Rabbi didn't do it there? Ella, we go by the source. What is the source? In the Torah, in the book of Bamidbar, book of Numbers, chapter 11, God said to Moses, after it was all big to do with complaining, etc., said, Asfali, assemble for me, the Lord said, Shiv'im ish, 70 erudite elders, to take over the leadership. So they said, Amar HaChamana, the merciful one, God Almighty, said, Mishat Asifa Shiv'im, meaning when they ingather, when they convene as an assembly, you need to have for the Great Sanhedrin 70, meaning you go by the final verdict of having 70 plus 1, as we explained, an even odd number, which is ruling by the majority. Now, when it's come to Sanhedrin Tana, this relatively small side, which is the 23, over there the Torah said in chapter 35, 2 times the word Veshaftu ha'eda vehetzilu ha'eda. Shaftu, shafat is judge, shaftu it's a plural. Ha'eda, we explained yesterday, it applied to a congregation. And then they said verescu vehetzilu ha'eda. So since you use this juxtaposition in the words, and you said name mishat shfitat ha'eda, you may think that that's applied to what? The time that begins the court session, until you have there the 23 judges, and not the final verdict by the 23. Hachainami, the Torah said in the book of Shmot, chapter 22, verse 7, that's the Parashat Shomer Chinam, that's the Torah portion that dealing with the first section with a unpaid guardian or belly. So the Torah said there, if something was stolen or lost, v'nikrav ba'al habayit el ha'elohim, that the owner, the household owner, enter before the rabbinic court. So we derive from that when it's come to a monetary payment, we have the requirement of 3 rabbinic judges. Mishat kriva, from the time that the court session begins, then you need to have 3 judges, but not that the final verdict is by 3. So it means you cannot say that the reason he requested 5, it's because you need to go by final verdict of 3. So therefore, the Gemara in a way chozeret ba, the Gemara backed out. And the Gemara said, Ela hainu ta'amad de Rabbi, that's the reason of Rabbi, because we zoom in the text over there in Pasuk Chet, verse 8, the Torah said, Asher yarshi'un Elohim. So Yarshi'un, as we explained in the intro, it's written Yud Rei Shin, Yud Ayin Nun Sofit, without the Hebrew letter Vav. So Trei meaning what? 2 judges, but Yarshi'un, the sounds also is what? Plural. So he said, Ne'emar Elohim lemata, ve'ne'emar Elohim lemala. By the end of the verse and by the beginning of the verse, the Torah used the term judges, Elohim. So since the beginning they said, Ad Elohim yavod dvar shnehem, up to the time of rabbinic session, the court of judges, the matter of disputation between 2 parties come through. and then they use by the end of the pasuk the same term of Elohim, asher yarshi'un Elohim, etc. So therefore we derive from that ma lemata shnayim, the same way as we use the word yarshi'un even without the vav. It sounds what? Plural, meaning they have to have judges, two judges. Af lemala, also when we said the beginning of the verse, they use the word Elohim, the Ada Elohim Yavod Var Shnehem, that it's also applied to what? To... So the Meiri explains that that's basically the verbal analogy, the manner of juxtaposition, that's the way you learn it. So what we derive from that you have altogether 2 and 2, it's what? It's 4 judges. So it means, because what we said earlier, we said that we do not learn from the first verse. Yesterday we explained, we don't go by the tchilot, the first Elohim, because that's leguf, to the text itself. Rashi explains. So now we said, ve'ein beidin shakul mosifin alehem od echad, harei kan chamisha. In order to make it happen, you need to bring another one of them, so you make it uneven number of judges. By doing so, you will be able to produce a very fair decision. So let's understand. The Rebbe who said yesh em la mikra, which means that's the way you saying it, yarshi'un, that's applied to lemala, lemata. You learn, the Adrama said, in order to make sure that the Beit Din is uneven, you have to add this one, and that's the way you do it. The Rabbanan, so by the Rebbe it's how many? The 5 judges. By the sages they hold em la masoret, the way that we receive it, which is yarshi'an. Yarshi'an, what it sounds like? 1 judge. So if it's 1 judge, therefore that's the whole concept. Later on we explain that it's ed, and you come to the 3. By the way, it's a big discussion among the Achronim, mainly Reb Chaim, but you see it in many others. You bring the Gemara and Chulin. But basically the idea is, the question is, when you go by the whole Batar Ruba, you go by the sense of majority, because part of that is the uneven number, and then you calculate the majority of, for example, votes. He brought a lot of sources, just give you a little bit. He brought the issue of Kiddush. We make a Kiddush, and basically we drink the ruba, which means rovkos, the most of the wine we drink. We don't need to drink everything, but we cannot yotzei, yedei chova, we not fulfill if it's too little. We need to have rovkos. So what's the assumption? The assumption is, in conjunction to us, we assume that when it's come to rov, the majority, the truth rely there. But it's not always so. You try to argue when it's come to isur and heter, right? For example, you have isur and heter, and you have something that like meat. So as dinan batar ruba, you go by the majority, but still you have the isur, which means you still have an issue with the core problem. So you bring Tosfot in Bava Kama, how exactly you go by the... He holds that when you have this disputation, for example in rabbinic court or others, is the idea that the minority basically subjugated themselves to the majority, kafuf ledat harov. It's in a way not necessarily that the majority are 100% right, it's just since you take a vote and you go by the majority, so the minority have to abide by the rules of the majority. So we learned, for example, yesterday, remember we learned yesterday about Beit Din of 2 judges, that the rules, so we call them chatzuf. What does that mean, chatzuf? Or in Yiddish, chutzpah, right? Chatzuf. What does that mean? So he said in Hebrew, it's so beautiful, he says chatzuf is abbreviation of chutz peh. chutzpeh, out of the mouth, which means you reveal to others what's supposed to be concealed. So it means the way that the verdict come out, usually in a matter of a regular court session, 3 judges, you don't know who votes what and how the rules make the ruling. But here, the moment that it's coming out, it's chatzuf, it's like chutzpeh, chutzpah. The people know exactly what happened in that court session and how things rules. It's a beautiful Reb Chaim. Those who have time, please read it. Page 4, Ve'Rabanan. So why the sages disputed Rabbi and hold that it's enough to have 3 judges? Yarshi'un ktiv. Because the letter Yarshi'un, as we explained, written without the letter Vav, so it means the Torah implied that what? That it's only 1 judge. The Meiri explains that the both sides of the dispute agree that the primary meaning of the text is determined by the way the words are vocalized. The dispute is that some hold that there is also halachic significance to the way that they are written. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi hold that since the term shall condemn is vocalized in the plural, the word Elohim, which is the subject to that verb, must be understood as referring to the 2 judges. Conversely, the sages hold that even though the letter shall condemn is vocalized and understood as plural word, Yarshi'un, the tradition of the matter in which it is written allows the constitutional text to be read as a singular verb, and this indicates that the word Elohim refers to a single judge, and the plural form is merely an indication of honor. So it means that here you see the disputation, the prime example of Yesh Em LaMikra or Yesh Ef LaMasoret. If you go by the way that it's written or by the way you pronounce it, and therefore it's by the way we discuss it in Sukkah page 6, Makot page 7 and other places. What exactly you go? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz uBet Shammai Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Akiva. So you have here 5 avenues. Kulhu svir alei, all of them hold Yesh Em LaMikra. You go by the vocalization of the Torah, and that's the authoritative, and that is the halacha, and therefore decided based on the meaning of the word as pronounced, not as a possible alternative reading of the written text. So if there is a place you're not sure how to machriya, how to roll, if by the Masoret or by the way that you read it, Rabbi had the Amaran. Rabbi, the way we said that there are two Yarshi'un, so therefore Yesh Em LaMikra, and therefore according to him you need to have 5 judges. By the way, if you go by the Yemenite Jews, so they have the tradition that the one who gets Aliyah la Torah, one who is the honor to call the Torah, he's also the reader of the Torah. We as the Ashkenazim, because some of us are not familiar of how to read the Torah properly, we have in many synagogues a hired Torah reader. But it was a question in the poskim, sometimes someone made charitzim, which is indirect implication in the text, where is the end of the psukim, etc., if that permissible to read from such a Torah or not, based on our sugya. Anyway, Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz said that Yesh Em LaMikra, the Tanya. Now we go by the law of the purification, which is Leviticus 12. We talk about a yoledet, woman that deliver a child, And Torah differentiate between baby boy and baby girl. So the Torah said, if it was a period of time, meaning after the delivery, there was a certain time that the main nidata, the days that she is nida, so then she is tme'ah, she is impure for 7 days, even if there is no blood. That's the Torah text. And then there is a tvul yom aroch, arev shemesh, you're waiting for the time of the sunset, and then she can go for the next step, which is, if it's a baby boy, it's a 33 days, and then she can duck herself in the mikveh, in a ritual bath, and she's pure tehorah to eat from the truma, and she's also allowed to have relation with the husband, and she can eat a truma, but when it's come to kodashim, it's a problematic, consecrated state, because if it's a consecrated, it's lo mechusar kapara. But as we said, if it's a zachar, if it's a male, she is impure that week, and then 33 days. So even if it happens that during the 33 days she sees any type of nida, by the Torah law, she is allowed to have relation with her husband. Versus if it's a female baby, the Torah decree that it's 66 days of Yomei Tahara, and when the core is, when it's written the word shvu'aim, you can have two meaning. Either you go by shin bet ayin yun mem sofit, which sounds like shiv'im, meaning 70, or you read it as 14 days if you said shvu'ayim. So anyway, שאלו תלמידים את רבי יהודה בן רועץ, אקרא אני 70, יכול תהא יולדת נקבה תמאה 70. So maybe if a woman deliver a child, instead of 14 days, it's 70 days, because the way it's spelled in the Torah can be 70. אמר להן, רבי יהודה בן רועץ respond to them, and he said, you cannot do it. טימא וטהר בזכר וטימא וטהר בנקבה. The Torah make a purification with baby boy and baby girl. מה כשטיהר בזכר בנקבה כפליים, which is double time from the baby boy, which is, as we explained, baby boy it's 33 days, baby girl it's 66 days of purification past that delivery and the very basic week. So now, לאחר שיצאו, after the disciples left, יצא ומחזיר אחריהם, רבי יהודה בן רועץ came back and called them, and אמר להם, אם אתם זקוקים לכך, שבועיים קרינן ויש אם למקרא. So we can say 2 weeks, and the vocalization, the idea that we pronounce of the Torah is authoritative. So as we said, it was a question posted to the late great Rav Shmuel Vozner of Bnei Brak. It was a case of, unfortunately, a woman that have a miscarriage, and it was just pieces that came out, and then the doctors need to do the whole process of final stage of cleaning. They asked the Rav Vozner, when exactly they count the days. Do you go, since it is unknown if it was Zachar or Nekiva, if it was a male or female, so he holds that you need to be machmir, you need to be stringent to go by the Shvu'aim, and therefore the big question was from when, Imatay Efshar Lispor, from when you counted. So in short, Rav Vozner rules that you have to go by the time that the doctors complete the final stage, not the time that she started the miscarriage. Anyway, Beit Shammai hold that is Em Lam Mikra, Ditnan, that's a Mishnah in Tractate Zvachim, page 36b. we are talking here about sprinkle the blood of the korbanot, of the sacrificial offering. So that was made of the outer altar. בית שמאי אומרים כל הניתנין על מזבח החיצון, all offering whose blood must be presented on the external altar. Once the blood has been presented, שנתנם במתנה אחת כיפר. So even it's b'diavad, in a hindsight, the moment that is presented with one presentation, the offering has a affected amount, even more if more presentations are ideally required. So the idea is, we read it every morning, we said that in the korbanot, when it's come to shtei matanot she'en arba, so the process has to be a burn offering, olah, asham, todah, shlamim, all these 4 type of offering. So it has to be in that ritual, in that process. So if it happens, shentanam, that if by force of circumstance presented with one presentation, so kiper, b'diavad, in a hindsight is okay, because the pasuk said, shenemar v'dam zvachecha yishefech, which means even one. Ubechatat, which is the sin offering, that the require is 4 arba matnot dam, for the 4 corner of the altar. So they said, shte matanot, the 2 on the corner of the altar, but אומרים אף בחטאת שנתנם במתנה אחת כיפר, even he did it in one corner, even affected, it's still, after the fact, it's still affected, it's still כיפר. ואמר רבונה, now Ravuna elaborates on the difference between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel in this disputation. Mai ta'amad de Beit Shammai. What's the rationale of Beit Shammai? Because he goes by the text in Leviticus chapter 4 and sentences 25, 30, 34. The Torah used the word karnot, kuf reish nun taf, which is karnot, the offering of the altar. Karnot, since it's written 3 times, the first one dealing with a president, Nasi, that committed a sin. ולקח מדם החטאת ונתן על קרנות מזבח העולה. And the other 2 applies to a regular, mundane, regular person that committed the sin. So here, because the Torah repeat in each and every one of them, and they said that you should sprinkle the blood on the corner of the altar, so the other might explain that we derive from that in order to fulfill it properly, that's the minimum requirement. Harei kan shesh, which is lechatchila it's 4, b'diavad there are 2, so it's 3 times karnot, arba lemitzvah, u'shtayim le'akev. So the mitzvah is the 4 of them, meaning that he should present the blood of all 4 corners of the altar lechatchila. B'diavad, after the fact, if the other 2 were mentioned to invalidate the offering, if he did not present it on the least 2 horns. Shtayim le'akev, otherwise not kiper. So the Rashi in Zvachim 37b said that it's really leikuva. Ubeit Hillel אומרים karnot, which is the first one with the vav, the other 2 without vav. We derive from that harei kan arba. It's 4, but not 6, as Beit Shammai learned. Shalosh lemitzvah. Shalosh lechatchila is the mitzvah. It's not מעכב כפרה, but it's a mitzvah. ואחת לעכב, but one of them is basically to invalidate the offering, which is the offering is not valid if the blood was not presented against at least 1 horn of the altar. So you see here that Beit Shammai go by yesh em lamikra, and Beit Hillel goes by yesh em lamasoret. So the Gemara asks, V'ima kulhu lemitzvah, all of them are written for the mitzvah, and none to invalidate, meaning that the blood must be presented of all 4 horns. So the Gemara said, kapara bichdi lo ashkechan, which is we are not found anywhere in the Torah an example on offering that which is atonement can be achieved with no presentation of the blood of the offering at all. So basically you see here that we go by the Mikra. The Karnot is written 3 times. Rashi explained that it's Karna, it's written Chaser, missing. But many have a derivative from that. We mentioned in the introduction, for example, to write the Sefer Torah. So the big question is, as we mentioned, we don't make the bracha, the Khatam Sofer. Khatam Sofer said, because number one, we're not Beki'im, we're not so erudite to write it properly, and therefore you derive from that you cannot do it either way, so not make the bracha. Karnot, by us, is without Vav, so therefore you cannot make the bracha. The Shagat Aryeh hold that that's what happened today. He says that that's the key reason why today is not part of the active mitzvah, the last mitzvah in the Torah, to write for yourself a Sefer Torah, because we are not 100% sure how to write the Torah in a proper way. And the Minchat Chinuch challenged that, because it says the only differences are relatively small. And he bring our Gemara, our Sugya, as a proof. But we cannot change the Masoret. And that's the key reason why all these Mefarshim, the Khatam Sofer and all the others, the Minchat Chinuch, the Shagat Aryeh, say that for the Torah writings, you cannot make the blessing. Neither before, because you don't know if you complete it, or afterward, after you're done, because you don't know if you did it right. Rabbi Shimon hold that you have Emla Mikra, the Tanya. This is Braita in Tractate Sukkah, page 6b. Now we talk about the walls of the Sukkah. Shtaim kihilchatan ushlishit afilu tefach. So you have to have 2 walls, the way that the Torah requires, which is the 7 handbreadth, and the 3rd one, it's enough to have 1 handbreadth. Rabbi Shimon omer shalosh kihilchatan urevi'it afilu tefach. 3 according to halacha, and the 4th one, even 1 tefach, 1 handbreadth. What's really the disputation between Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon? Rabbanan Sabre yesh em la masoret. Rabbi Shimon Savar yesh em la mikra. So the sages hold that the tradition on the manner on which the verses in the Torah are written is authoritative. The Rabbi Shimon hold that it's that the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative. Rabbanan Sabre yesh la masoret basukot. It's written here basukot without vav. In the next pasuk, they talk in plural because they use the word basukot and they add the Hebrew letter vav. So harei kan arba dal chad gra legufei pashu lehutlat atai hilcheta grata לשלישית והוקים נה הטפח. ורבי שמעון סבר בסוכות harei kan 6, because they written basukot in a plural way, so it's a 2, it's 6. Dal chad lekra legufei, the basukot, the first one, you take it out because you need it for the guf text. Pashulu arba, which means that's the 4 walls, and therefore atay ilcheta gra'ata larevi'it. So therefore that you go by the halacha transmitted to Moses in Sinai, then come and reduces the 4th wall and establishes that the minimum of 1 breadth for Kmei Tefach. So the Chazon Ish have a discussion about V-Sukkah, which appear like 2 walls. Is that considered 2, 2.5, 3? Famous Chazon Ish. Rabbi Akiva de Tanya. רבי עקיבא אומר, מניין ברביעית הלוג, דם שיצא משני מתים שמטמא באוהל. Here we talk about a quarter of log of blood that came out of 2 separate corpses. So it means you have half from one corp, half from another corp. Can that combine? Because the key here is the idea that the moment you have a quarter, it's already make it tameh. So he says, Shene'emar, because the Torah said about the high priest in Leviticus 25, Al kol nafshot met lo yavo, that any of the dead body, he shall not come upon any of the dead body. So shte nefashot v'shi'ur echad. So you have here 2 nefashot and 1 body. And how we explain it? So he said, there's a, as we mentioned in the introduction, there's a book called Shevet HaKati. Shevet HaKati have a painful question: if someone passed away in a mikveh and now it's full of blood, how you treat it? Can a person duck in that mikveh or not? Or another question posted, the Kohen allowed to enter that mikveh. So you bring Binat Adam from the Chaye Adam. My late father used to study Chaye Adam daily and give a shiur Chaye Adam daily. But anyway, the Chaye Adam said that if you take a beged sheyesh dam met, if you take a clothing, for example a shirt, that have a resonance of blood from a deceased, so the question is, im haroshem nikar, if you see it out loud, clearly, so then it's a problematic. But if it's nivla beged, but if it's within the garment, you don't see it. So roshem nikar metame, make it impure. Otherwise, not. So the same here, if the blood, im adam nikar b'mayim, if the blood is recognized within the domain of the ritual bath and the water, so therefore it's prohibited, asur. If lo nikar, lo. But there are those who disagree, and because they say that there is a shi'ur legodel mesuyam b'mayim, that there is a certain amount you go with the water, otherwise me'abed kocho. But anyway, tzarich iyun, all of that we don't have the time. ורבנן נפשות כתיב, מתקיף לרווח אבר יעקב מעיקה דרית לישם למקרא, והתניא, that's the famous prohibition against mixing meat and meat. So the Torah said in the book of Shmot, chapter 23, verse 19, the famous text, לא תבשל גדי בחלב אמו, you shall not cook a young goat in its mother milk. So how you think about it, how you interpreted this pasuk, they appeared in Torah another 2 times. So the Gemara in Chulin 113b said that 1 it's bishul, the idea of cooking, 1 eating the mixture, achilat ha'rovet, and 1 any derivative of benefit. והתניא בחלב עמו, יכול בחלב עמו. So the question is how you treat it, is it chelev or chalav? Magilot Hayam said that it's bechelev, not bechalav. But anyway, so because you don't have the nekudot in the Torah. So how you treated this? Page 4b, Amarta yeshem lamikra. So here there is in general, Gemara in Chulin, when we reach there, we'll talk about basar bechalav, that they said that it's one of the problems to understand the whole concept of basar bechalav. Now, here the way that we have a difference in between the Hebrew bechalav or bechelev. The way that we read it, lo tevashel gdi bachalev imo. But anyway, ve'ela dekule alma yashem lamikra. And here the disputation v'ravi v'rabanan, that if they ask, they disputed if you need to have a court session of 3 or 5 judges, behakka mifligei Rabbi Savar Reshun Elohim, which is acharinei, that's the ad Elohim yavod var shneim, that's the dayanim, v'rabanan sabri Reshun de'a'ech ve'a'ai, that's the plural manner, which means that the 2 dayanim, the 2 judges, we derive from the word Elohim, which means 1 dayan we derive from Elohim, and the second one is from the end of the pasuk, the second Elohim, and that reyarshiun in the plural way. So it means from the two Elohim we not derive only two judges, and therefore in order to have uneven court, bedin shakul, you need to have the third judge. That's the way Rashi explained to us. So now the Gemara go by the second Tana that Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef brought. Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz. Remember we talk about Nekeva, the female baby that is impure 2 weeks, because we derive from the word Shvu'ayim and not Shiv'im. That's the Emla Mikra. Lo Plige Rabbanan alei. So the sages not disputed him. That they all learn from the Yoledet that she's Tme'ah Shvu'ayim 2 weeks and not Shiv'im Yom. A little introduction, that it was a Chut Sikra used to sprinkle. There's a question, the altars mitachat milamala. That's the way they do the korbanot, and part of that was mizbach hadazahav, the golden altar. Anyway, Beit Hillel Tanya. The Torah said when it's come to outer altar, the Torah said vechiper, vechiper, vechiper. The Torah used the term vechiper 3 times. One, it's for the Sa'ir Nasi, for the president offering. Second one is Kifsat Yachid, individual. And third one is the Se'irat Izim of Yachid. So all of that, Mipnei Hadin. Va'alo dinu, Ne'emar Damim, running out of time. Okay. Ne'emar Damim lemata, Ne'emar Damim lemala. דחות הסקרה. מה הדמים אמורים למטה שנתנה במתנה אחת כיפר, הדמים אמורים למעלה נתנה במתנה אחת כיפר. או כלך, לדרך זו, נאמר דמים בחוץ ונאמר דמים בפנים. מה הדמים אמורים בפנים? חיסר אחד מתנות, לא עשה ולא כלום. דמים אמורים בחוץ, חיסר אחד מתנות, לא עשה כלום. So נראה לי דומה, דנים חוץ מחוץ ודנים חוץ מפנים, או כלך לדרך זו, דנים חטאת וארבע קרנות מחטאת וארבע קרנות, ועל יוכיח זה שאין חטאת אלא 4 קרנות. תלמוד לומר וכיפר 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 מפני הדין. כיפר אבל פי שלא נתן אלא 3. כיפר אבל פי שלא נתן אלא 2. כיפר אבל פי שלא נתן אלא 1. So, just as a little side note, there are those who have the minhag between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to read the korbanot. Why? Because we see it in the Sidurim, the Yehi Ratzon, that Ki'ilu Ikravti Korban, by pronouncing the word, by the lip service, is like substitute for the offering. My great-grandfather, Noam Elimelech, elaborates on that a lot in his book. But the late Diane Fisher, which I have a privilege to know well in Har Nof, Yerushalayim, when I lived for 13 years, he rules, they ask him, Balei Tshuva, people who are basically returned to the life of Judaism, how many times they need to read the Parashat Korbanot. So he hold, according to what you feel you need to do it 100 times, do it 100 times. But my late teacher and Rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the Rosh Yeshiva of Kol Torah, he said no, because we hold Ke'ilu Ikriv when we say it every day. Ke'ilu Ikriv, Pa'am Achat, like you bring one time, and bring Raya, bring a proof from our Gemara. What we said in the Gemara, that we have the sprinkle of blood, it's 4 different locations, and we follow Halacha Kebeit Hillel, so you see, even he did in one place, Yetzai Dei Chovato, so therefore, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said that it's enough for Baal Tshuva to say it once. Anyway, Rabbi Shimon v'Rabbanan. So that's the idea of Sukkot. Behaplig, Rabbi Shimon savar schacha lo ba'ikra. Rabban savri schacha ba'ikra. Rabbi Akiva, Rabbanan haplig, Rabbi Akiva savar nafshot tarti mashma, Rabbanan savri nafshot b'de alma mashma. Udekul alma yeshem lamikra, is everyone agree that yesh lamikra, ve'atanya letotafot. We said in the parsha of the Kriyat Shema, in the Tefillin, so we say letotafot. So the 2 times it's written without Vav, between Pei and Taf, and the third one it's written with Vav, Arikan Arba. So the Chtam Sofer, you see it also in the Chaya Adam, have a big discussion. Basically the rabbis hold that if you have tefillin from your grandfather, which I see many people here in Long Island, but elsewhere too, it's not good, because today we have all this technology, which is fascinating to see. I have the privilege to see it in Israel, in Tefillin Beit El, and other places. They do amazing production of tefillin. So basically they take the ore and they build the four batim. So in those days, in the past, they used to have a glue, a special devek. The Khatam Sofer said that the problem is that it's not really batim, because they don't divided it properly. It's only davuk milamala. But today it's not the issue. So anyway, when we talk about the תותפות, so דברי רבי ישמעאל, רבי עקיבא אומר, לא צריך תות בחטפי 2, פות באפריקי 2. אלא לעולם פליגי. הנמילה כי פליגי, היכא דשא נקרא ממסורת, אבל היי חלב וחלב דחיידא דנינו, ישם למקרא. So then they ask about עלייה לרגל, והרי יראה דחיידא דנינו ופליגי, דתניא רבי יוחנן בן דהווי אומר משום רבי יהודה בן תימא, אסומה באחד מניו פטור מן הראייה. If someone, God forbid, is blind, he is exempt from the pilgrims to go to the בית המקדש 3 times a year for עלייה לרגל, שנאמר יראה כל זכורך את בני השם אלוקי ישראל. So what you said, יראה, כדרך שבא לראות, כך בא לראות. מה לראות? בשתי עיניו, she needs to have the full scene of להיראות בשתי עיניו. My late father wrote a beautiful article years back about the comparison between the קידוש לבנה for סומה, עלייה for סומה, versus מצווה of ראייה לרגל, ראייה 3 times. How do you basically cannot compare? Even all of the 3 speaks in halachot of suma. So I remember one time I heard a beautiful story in Polish language. They use the word for round challah, they use the word rudish. So it was one of the rabbeim, the Hasidic rabbeim, that was before the Yom Tov. So he said, "Is the remez lachag, the rudish challah." So it was a Polish Yid, it was a Hasidic Jew that laughed on that. So the story it was a Gerach Hasid, so he went to the Rabbi, the Chidush Harim. And the Chidush Harim right away said, go and check your tefillin. He checked and he turned to be puzzled, invalid. So he asked the Rabbi what happened. So he said, when it's come to the whole idea of giving the Torah, we said that, so when it's come to tefillin, you have one word, the תותפות, that is from different language. So if you make fun of a different language, foreign language, so you check it, you see how. So you explain that in original, in Bereshit, we learn the Dora Plaga. Dora Plaga, the Hashem mix all the languages. So he said up to that point, you see the Rashi, you see the Old Meforshim, they talk Lashon HaKodesh, they talk Hebrew. And then the Bilbelu Sfatam, the Hashem mixture all their languages. So it means that there's several words left that still relate Shayachot LeKedusha. So therefore the Torah take them back, and that's the idea of לתותפות. Anyway, we don't have time, let's finish. אמר רב אחא ברי דרב איקה, אמר קרא לו דבשל גדי, דרך בישול אסרת תורה. So here he said that the idea of derech bishul, the way that you cook, manner of cooking, which is generally done in a liquid such as milk, and not a solid substance such as fat. So that's the idea that the Torah prohibited. The Khatam Sofer bring Rabbeinu Yonah. It's a different Rabbeinu Yonah. It's the one who wrote the book Kanfei Yonah. So in those days they used to have chelev, the wax that they make candles. They make oils and candles. So those days was expensive. They used to mix butter and milk with that. Butter and the chelev, and the wax. And the question is, you have a discussion if it's allowed, it's basar b'chalav, in a way that you have different type of joy and use. So Khatam Sofer even elaborate, and he said that in Shabbat you have to differentiate between l'adlik ner, to light the candles, versus if it's derech bishul. If it's derech bishul, it's not maintained for long, so therefore it's not only derech bishul is violated, but derech adlaka not. But the derivative from that is also the Khatam Sofer and Kanfei Yonah, when it's come to Ner Chanukah, if you can use those candles, that mixture of chalav and chelev. But nowadays In my best knowledge, they don't use, most of the people, as far as I know, they're using either oil, olive oil, right? And things like that. Anyway, we'll discuss these things when the time allows later.